Hey there, everyone. How are you? So I hope you're having fun out there in Paintland. A recent post in the group page on Facebook was that I shared some of these really, really nice, inspiring, kind of easy. I would say, this maybe doesn't seem like a beginner's thing, but we can totally make it into a beginner's thing. And it's just something to have fun with. I shared a bunch of them and you guys really liked it. It seemed like you wanted me to do this one in a tutorial. So I thought I would do this one on YouTube. And then I have classes coming up in the fall of trees. So if you do want to take the classes on trees, I will have tons of beautiful foliage and autumn urban scenes and landscapes all out there in kind of like abstract, semi-abstract styles. And those are going to be in a great big tutorial package on my website at jacquelinejacks.com, just so you know. Anyway, doesn't my palette look good? I'm so excited because for my birthday, I had this idea. I keep looking at all these palettes, and I was going to buy a Sennelier or a Schmincke palette for my birthday. But then I thought, God, as I would look at the colors, I realized I didn't really love all the colors, or I had a lot of them. So I kind of settled on doing a double-decker palette myself. This actually comes out and sits in. And then I did the swatch cards over the weekend. This is crazy. It was a huge project, a lot more to doing it than I thought, but it really worked out great. I just kind of got little magnets, and I stuck the magnets and also some secure putty under here to secure my wells, and I did whole pans, and I love it. It has every color in it from my collection of Sennelier, Daniel Smith, Schmincke, and even some of the White Knights. And I just couldn't be more thrilled with just seeing them all and knowing what my inventory is. I didn't put anything in here that I don't use. There's some stuff that I have that I just haven't used in a long time. And so I left some open because I have some new paints that I'd love to play with, and people send me different ones all the time to try. So I thought it'd be handy to have some little extras in here. So I haven't secured them yet, and I haven't decided. But I also want to show you, as we get started here, the Sennelier case. So on another video on YouTube, I actually did a Sennelier review of the watercolors that were in the test set. And they come in this Sennelier box. And this is actually just stuck on with a magnet. We reviewed it on the channel, and it comes with these 5 colors here, right? But from these, not including this, I made all of these colors. And again, I just put magnets because this box is amazing. I put magnets on my thing, so if I wanted to use this as a palette, I could. Otherwise, I can just put this in, it doesn't fall. And these are the colors that I ended up making. All of these are custom colors that I made from these. So like literally with the exception of cobalt turquoise, which I always end up putting there, and phthalo turquoise, which I just put in. I did not use them to make all of these. I did all of these just with that. And I thought that was really cool. We can actually use this palette to do this project, and maybe we will, because it depends on what you have at home. I'm going to go over a couple of different colors that you can use to do this project if you don't have these and you weren't able to get your hands on them. But let's leave these open. I'll put them right up here. So, because I might end up, oh my gosh, the paint has not cured yet in these sets, and I keep touching everything. And then I end up with paint all over my fingers. That's been happening all weekend. Okay, so looking at our paint idea here, our inspirational photograph, you basically can go at this a few ways. You can use the convenience colors that you have, like perhaps, maybe I'll do this. Let's put this here, and we'll put this here. Let me grab a little brush. You can use convenience colors that you already have to do something like this. I think I want this brush. For instance, you're definitely going to use a yellow, right? So I would say whether you go warm or cool, this to me looks like a cool yellow. So we can just go ahead and call it lemon, right? If you have Hansa yellow, then that's why I love this palette. I literally can grab anything. You can use Hansa yellow. It's a little bit warmer. And I'll show you what that makes. I would always swatch before you you act, because if you should use a different color, and I'll show you what I mean. Oh man, this is not cured yet. This is going to be fun. If you should use something like this one, we got a lot of that, then you're going to see how different your combination comes out. So for those of you who are my beginners out there, you have to watch what you actually use, right? So as far as a blue, say we use maybe, we're going to take the Ultra, because you guys all have Ultra, right? So say our blue is going to be Ultra, which is beautiful. What kind of green does that make? Well, right there, that will definitely do this, and that's fine. So we can stop right there at just those two colors to do this entire thing. To get a little bit deeper, what would you do to get these deeper tones? Well, you can either go indigo, or if you're in this kit, you can just grab the Payne's Gray and add Payne's Gray, and then you're good. So you're still working off of the Sennelier kit. And if you have your own palette and you wanted to maybe go like this, indigo is a really, really nice, nice way to go. That's this beautiful blue. It's kind of like an indigo Prussian. It's so pretty. This is by Winsor Newton. It's one of my only Winsor Newton colors that I got a long time ago, and probably before they started making them in China. To me now, Winsor Newton just doesn't cut it. You know, I just really, really don't like the way the paints are. And the paints, I mean, I actually buy the Traveler's set, but the problem is the paints just aren't really good. I just like the palettes. So I take all the paints out of the palettes and rehome them to people who actually do like them, which just isn't me. What can I say? So this is a good combination too. So if you were using a warm yellow, you'll see you get a very earthy green that looks kind of, you know, almost like it's going in the sap green direction, or like a hooker's green, right? So that's really good. If it were sap green that you just have, or phthalo green, you could do phthalo green if you want a really bright painting. But you definitely are going to need your blue to tone it down and make it a little deeper. So you can see where we're going, right? And how you can change the mood of this painting depending on what colors you actually are going to use. This is a sap green, which has a lot of yellow in the base. It like breaks apart almost when you add water. And again, just take that same Ultra. This is Ultra Deep, by the way. You can use any of these Ultras, though. They'll all pretty much do the same thing. And we're getting that beautiful tone. So I don't even know what to choose. I feel like I kind of want to explore the sap green and the blue together. Would kind of be fun to play with. But would we get some of these little creamy areas? Maybe. I don't know. Another one would be this. Would be kind of neat to do. Let's go ahead and just start painting. There's, again, I just wanted to give you the swatches here. You can do indigo. If you guys are Daniel Smith's fans and you like lunar blue is a great one. It's got a heavy granulation. You can see where you could pick up some of these tones here. That would be really nice as that deeper color. Mayan blue is also another favorite of mine. I love Mayan blue. It's just a gorgeous, rich color. So you can see as a convenience color, it starts out. You don't really get the green, but you could, you know, mix it with the sap. That would be a really nice combination. And do either the lemon yellow, or if you do decide to do the more orangey yellow, just mix it and see if you like it that way. It's definitely not this, right? Because this is more cool. One more thing, Payne's Gray. So for my Payne's Gray fans that have the Sennelier, I just want to mention it's got a lot of blue in it. It's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it gives off some warms, but it's kind of very cool too. So make sure that you adjust depending. I would use, probably if you're going to use Payne's Gray, I would use the lemon yellow. I think that looks really kind of cool, and it gets this like olivey green. If we mix the warm yellow with it, then it kind of gets muddier a little bit. You know, it's nice. It just gets a little more moody, right? Rather than, so the cleaner yellow works a little bit better. But again, it's up to you. It's your painting. You know what I mean? You can pretty much use whatever you want. The Prussian is a really beautiful blue. When you use it in light shades, of course you get this. You can just start layering it and use it right out of the tube and get it much, much darker. This is beautiful. This would make a really pretty painting. I love Prussian. Prussian is like one of my favorite colors. You can add the Payne's gray to it, would be stunning. And then what kind of yellow would we do? I would say, you know, I would love to try the nickel azo. I know that's a surprise, but I just love, oh, that's incredible. Yeah, that's definitely, I'm doing that. That's me. Hi, Husky. How are you? Sodalite Genuine is another one you guys asked me about a lot. I really love Sodalite Genuine. It's a beautiful, beautiful granulating color. There it is. It has warm undertones, so you want to kind of plan accordingly. It's like it has almost like a blue to it, you know, like a blue, but I don't know. I feel like it's very, very warm. I'm definitely going with this right now. I'm going to do one with that. And God, I don't know. Let me get in here. Let me get in here. Oh, well, we'll do one from the kit, one from the Sennelier kit, and one in the colors that I would like to play with. How about that? All right, let's get started, shall we? I'm so excited about this. So for those of you who like to use palette knives, I would suggest you get like a 1.5 Princeton Aqua Elite. This is really great because you can use that with your palette knife. These are plastic palette knives. I prefer the metal ones, but for some reason I don't have one here with me. I must have been using it the other day. Another thing that you can use is a plastic card, and I am so not prepared with my tools. No, here we go. I got a plastic card. Let's do the plastic card because that's like kind of easier, right? My sample is down here. You guys can see it. My little testy swatches I'm going to leave over here. So the way I would go at this first is keep a spray bottle on hand. Take my plastic card. I'm wondering if any of you need this drawn. Like maybe we should just practice drawing one. So what I would just do is I would just rough how I want this area to be down here, and maybe just with a soft pencil rough out how I want my tree to be. Okay, so maybe we just do that just so you have a little guide. You probably can't even see the guide because literally that's how it works on camera. You can't see pencil very well. But what I would do to start this is I would do either, you can either do wet on dry to begin with or wet on wet, but I have 100% cotton paper here. So what I'm going to do to make it easy for beginners, I think, is we're just going to do, let's try wet on wet, because I'm thinking, what if you just mess up your paper and you just paint it all with water? How are you going to learn to control it? So let's do this as an exercise, a full-on exercise on control, shall we? I mean, obviously they did not have the paper wet here, but I can show you how to fix that. So say we start with wetting our paper entirely. And this is for those of you also, like this is a cotton block, and then I just kind of put the painter's tape on to outline it. But say you want to wet the front and the back so that your paper doesn't curl and you don't want to tape it. This is for that. And also for those of you who just wet too much. Get a paper towel on a hand, and where you don't want the paint to be, just dry it. So if you want to control where your paint goes, you can dry it. So this one's dried, this one's wet on wet. We're going to take our plastic card, and this is where I can use my palette knife. So the colors that I really liked were Prussian. And that is, I covered my, sorry guys. I have so many colors in this great palette that I don't know where they are yet. I didn't learn them yet. So I'm going to take my Prussian and just get it on my card here. The easiest way, I think, is actually for me. Well, for me, I really love to load up my card with paint and put more than one color on there because that's really fun and it's exciting. I never know what I'm going to get. So we know that if Prussian is a blue and we use either green or yellow, you know what you're going to get, right? So I definitely want to encourage the yellows, and I want to show you guys dramatically what happens. So we're going to use this creamy yellow, you know, this, what is it? It's, oh my gosh, am I just flaking out? It's permanent yellow light is what it is. Permanent yellow light. And this one actually is by Mission Gold. I like Mission Gold paints. So we're going to do that. Okay, just for fun. Let's put this over here. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to tip my card over, and where we want this line, right, we're going to just go ahead and just do that. Just start there. And then, because I'm on a really tiny sheet of paper, I'm hoping this really works. Then I'm just going to kind of drag this over this area very, very randomly. Look at that. Pretty cool. Okay. Now in here, I actually, just for fun, I'm just going to go ahead and put some little strikes with my card in the paper. And I'm going to just do a little bit of the tree, the bottom. Okay, just to show you, you know, how we get this to just not feel like it's so ridiculously uptight in our painting. I'm going to take a brush. I actually prefer for these kind of things to use a larger brush than you deserve to use. So I'm going to go ahead and get a Da Vinci, like a quill brush or something just very loose and watery. Now, because I'm on 100% paper, this will work out. If you weren't on 100% paper and you used a very, very big brush, what would happen? You would maybe get a little too much wash, right? So we're going to try. We're going to try this one first. And I'm going to wet this line here, right on this line here. And see how that starts to pull the paint up. And then we're going to just do it like this, because that's the effect we want. Leaving as much white space. Like, we're leaving some nice white space down here. You know, don't try to fill it all in. Then for fun, let's just cause a stir. So we're going to activate some of this. Now this is where it's really, really random. There's not a lot you can do to control it. But like, I put a lot of yellow on here. If I felt like this was just a little too much yellow, I could just take it out. And that's a way of kind of controlling the puddles and making sure that all of my yellow doesn't get covered. I would just kind of do this. And I like the texture that I get from using the paper towel. And just let this bleed up. We don't really know. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen here. But what you can do is you can freeze things in time. Now on watercolor paper, what happens is there's a different thing that happens as it dries. So you actually end up with a different painting as things dry up. And you want to be, you know, just mindful of that and know that that's going to happen, right? So I'm just kind of going to take this here and I'm going to encourage some lines up. Now, because I dried that area, you're going to start to get this, but I'm doing some of these lines up because I want some little strikes and I want them to blend into the background. So doing it while it's kind of really wet or damp, you can see how it's blending and it becomes like a nice background that starts to blend into your paper. It doesn't give you any, like, can you see that? It doesn't give you anything that's so visible that it won't blend in. Like where that's going, huh? It's pretty cool. Okay, so I really like what I've got down here actually, because it's really nice. And I'm going to take another paper towel And I love these shots of yellow, so I really don't want them to get lost too much. I'm going to kind of force the drying a little bit with my paper towel just so that I don't lose my yellow, and I push back some of these areas just because I really love that. You know what I mean? And I don't want it to, I don't want to not let it do what it wants to do, but I also don't want to lose that yellow in this. I just want to direct it a bit. And I'm going to add just a damp, this is a long round size 8 Princeton Velvet Touch. I like the Velvet Touch sometimes when I just need a little bit of control to be able to place things and not have too much water. So this has a nice sharp point. I also have some Escoda ones coming that I really like. So now we have this. Let's look at the background and what we're going to do with the background a little bit. I'm going to encourage some washes to go up like this, very similar to what this is, but just in my own way. Okay. And I'm going to take the rest of that really beautiful, very, very light blue, and I'm just going to strike it out from the tree like this, almost like there's, so I leave a lot of white space. You see what I'm doing? So I'm striking it out so that it's got this really lovely kind of texture of very, very light pastel blue, but then pieces of white. Now we're going to work on our tree. So we've got this bottom part done. I love it. I'm going to leave it like it is because it's, to me, it's just lovely. I love the way it turned out. Take my little towel because I get paint all over myself. Sticking with the same colors, we don't want to divert, right? Just stay with the same colors. So I'm going to take a little bit more of my Prussian. Let's put it on my palette here so I don't lose it anymore. Okay, and we're just going to kind of throw it in some areas. And I'm imagining right now where the tops of my branches would be. That's how I'm kind of guiding my eye, where the tops of my branches should be. Remember, this is very loose. Okay, not too much. We can always take some back if we feel like it's too much, right? So let's leave that there. I'm going to take another brush because I don't really want to mess up. I don't want to clean up the brushes each time. And I'm going to take some of my yellow. Again, this is that permanent yellow light. This one's by Mission Gold, but you can use anything that's a warm yellow if you like this combination. And I'm going to start dabbing it in around this. Now, let me show you a cool little trick. Get either Q-tip or the paper towel and dry some areas inside the tree, lifting it back to the white. Just some random areas. Okay. I'll show you what this does. Okay, so you got some areas that are very, very heavily pigmented and some that are not. So now I'm mixing my yellow in on my palette so that I can kind of control the kind of green that I have. And the areas where I dried it, I'm actually going to add some of the green in those areas and encourage a little bit of detail. Now this is a very small painting, right? See what I'm doing? So it's pretty dry. It's like semi-dry because I just used the paper towel on it. Not entirely dry. And you can see on this is 100% cotton hot press, very smooth. It is just ever so, just a little bit goes a long way, and it's spreading it all by itself. Pretty, huh? So now let's go and get some of our Prussian. And right now I'm just kind of feeding in the color just how I see it. Like if the light was coming from here, you know, since I've got this nice yellow there, then let's continue on with that because trees are not one color and they are not one shape. Correct? Let's do a little more dark blue over on this side. I can hear my dogs. They want to get into the studio so that they can bother you. Now that to me is just, I love it. It's lovely. It's so, so nice. I'm almost finished. I don't even want to mess with this too much. I love it so much. So did you see what I did? It was kind of a little bit too wet, and I didn't really feel like having a backwash. So I just kind of speed up the drying a little bit, and it brings in a little more light, you know? And I take a little more of my dark and just go over. And so now if you kind of move away from this, you're seeing something really, really luscious, right? You're seeing the movement of the way some of these areas are bleeding out, which is so nice. And again, if you want to encourage bleeding out just for the sake of it, just hit it with a shot of water. Don't be afraid. I know you're like, oh my gosh, what if I mess up? And, try not to make it even. Trees are not even. And I feel like the brilliance is in the imperfections that the trees have and how oddly shaped they might be, Okay, so now I'm just going to grab a little bit of the dark. So let's go ahead and just use the indigo mixed with my Prussian. And I'm just going to drop some of the dark in here. And we're just going to leave it alone to see what it does. Now this is a very small painting, so obviously it's going to overwhelm this pretty fast. I'm just going to kind of add some of these colors here, just for fun. Okay, now to soften it, you can either spray it to soften it out and encourage it to bleed, and then go back in and take out the puddles. No, actually, I really love that. And then once it dries a little bit, we're going to go back and add just a little more detail. All right, let's leave this dry for a second and we'll be right back. I'm back. So you can see how it's changed a little bit. So the details that we put in, because I did the wash with the spray brush, it kind of like muted a lot of the details, but I love the way it looks. Now we're going to go back in and we can add as many details back into it as you would like. Now, as far as this white, she put that on at the end afterwards, actually. It's kind of a neat little trick. I like the way it looks, and because it's, I'm just drying some of this a little bit more and getting back to the white. It's lifting just a bit. So we've got this nice wash and we're going to build on it. So I'm going to take this and the green, and I'm just going to add some details real quick. Just going to drop it in, take a little more of my yellow and go back up here. Again, my paper is still kind of wet, so in some areas it is going to blend together, and that's fine because that's what we want. We want that look. Now, I want you to look very carefully at your page and your paper, and this is where you start making decisions as an artist. What does it look like to you, and what is your vision for it? Not what my vision is for my painting, but what is your vision for your painting right now? This is where everybody starts to do something different. You might be there right now. You might love the way it looks just like it is. And that's great. You've arrived. Stop right where you are. You might want to keep going. You might want to encourage these bleeds. Right now, my paper is bleeding like crazy and I love it. It's just really, really neat. So I'm kind of hitting areas. And as I go over these areas, I'm getting a mix of different things that are happening, right? You might want to grab something like a fan brush and kind of, since we have so much bleeding, get some of your color and just start dropping it in this way. This is what I actually prefer because I really love the randomness that I can get with odd little brush strokes. I think they're so beautiful, and they add just texture, and they keep me from doing anything too evenly, you know? So I'm just using a fan brush, putting it in my color, drying it off as much as possible, just a little bit. When I get down here and I want some depth, just add a little more depth. But be careful, you know, just think about what you're doing. Think about, you know, close your eyes and look at your tree and think about what you want your tree to look like. Look at how this is going. It's beautiful. I love it. Remember, this is your tree. Yours does not have to turn out like mine. I am just a guide. So as soon as you say it's finished, it's finished. I'm just going to stand back. Take a look for a second. Watch it just bleed. One thing great about really good paper, 100% cotton watercolor paper, it doesn't finish. So it like keeps working and keeps creating after you have called it quits. You don't ever want to use a hairdryer on your paintings. And the reason why is because you stop the paper from processing and doing what it's meant to do, you know? And I don't think that that's good to do anything. I don't think it's good to limit creativity like that, you know, like, oh, I want it to stop. I just want it to stop. You know, just deal with it and see what you end up with. Why not? Okay. I love this. It's so pretty. I really do like the colors. They're really neat. They're kind of moody. So what are we going to do for this? Well, you can take a striper brush. This is a Prada Escoda size 2. I love this brush. And I'm just going to go ahead and dip it in my colors and keep it kind of monochromatic. And see exactly how dry my paper is. I did this in the same color because I'm gonna just kind of have some different layers here. So by keeping it in the same color range just yet, I'm kind of controlling the balance of the painting. If I were to take, I really can't stand browns. I really don't love to work with browns. So I tend to think outside the box and just use blue or green, you know what I mean? And I think that's why my paintings they aren't filled with a ton of colors, but they're filled with color, right? So the colors are always bright and always bold, but it's not like in a usual way. And I really like that because I just don't happen to love certain colors. And I think that ends up being reflected in my paintings. So now I'm encouraging my tree branch. Some of it, you can see it's still really, really bleeding. So I don't really want that on my tree branch. So I'm just going to lift this out and dry it really well in here. Now that I've dried it, still not enough. I mean, it's okay. You know, let's fade it back into the background and we'll do that last. Or maybe I'll take some, sometimes if I just make the paint thicker, sometimes I'm able to, yeah. Get it to happen. I'm almost dry brushing this right now just because I want to encourage a very organic look. Now, if you see something like here, this is where it's cutting into the tree, and I'll just add a little bit of dark at the base. You can even, I don't really know if I'm going to love it if I hit it with it, but you can hit it with a little bit of water, or just get your brush with a little water and just wet that area. Because you can always pick it back up if you don't like the way it's mixing or what it's doing. but you have to get it wet because you don't want it just like a branch disappearing. You know, you want it to kind of blend and lose itself into the tree. You don't want these branches. Like I see a lot of people, they end up with these trees with just like you can see the branches. It's almost as if the branches are all sitting in front of the tree and the tree is behind the branch. You know what I'm saying? And it's really just because they just don't really know how to do it. And this is a good way to do it. It's just wet the top of your branch, and that way it starts to disappear into the tree. And then in areas where, let's get my rigger back, put my blue on it. In areas where the branches might be seen, I'm going to dry that and just add some little streaks of where that branch might be. And if I add it too dark, I can just tap it. So that's how I get the trees. Oh, we're going to have so much fun in the classes this year when we do the foliage class. You should really, I hope you'll come and take it with me, because it's going to be fun to do all different kinds of trees and colors and, you know, just play with them. Okay, so now I'm just kind of randomly connecting this, and that's because there's still more areas that I can paint in. So I just went ahead and added some more tree branches, and they're going to disappear right now because I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to put it in my green, and I'm just going to go over some of the areas with my yellow to encourage the green, more of the green. So this was like a little bit of the Prussian, right? Can add a little bit in the shadowed areas. And I typically, as a rule, well, I mean, there's no exact rules, but a lot of times I will just add some of the deeper, like either the mid-tones, you know, some of the darker or the lighter where the branch should be. And that, if you study trees, that's a lot of times where some of the depth will be, because it's the branch reaching up into the tree that's kind of like causing it to look, you know, to kill the light. So this area is just still way too wet, so I'm just going to dry it a little bit, and that, oh, perfect. I can get a little more detail just by drying that out. And I got a little more light into the base of my tree. I mean, you could fiddle. I could fiddle with this forever. I really could. I'm going to go over to the next one now. Okay. Oh, I seriously could keep fiddling with this because it's fun and it looks really good, and I love the way it's turning out. Okay, I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it like that. Let's let it dry. Leave it alone for a sec. Okay, so let's go to the other one. What was the other color? We were going to do it from this palette, right? So where is my credit card? Let's wash off our card here. Not that those other colors would really pose a problem, but I want to give our paper the benefit of the doubt. Get these brushes out of here. Okay. I don't want to ruin them, so I don't like to leave them in water for too long, even on these tutorials. When I'm painting by myself, I usually go a little bit slower than this, but I don't want you guys to be here forever. I want you to be able to watch the tutorial and start painting. Okay, so let's go ahead and use this brush for the yellow. So I'm dipping it in the Sennelier 501 from the kit. And I'm just going to put a bunch on my card. Some different areas. Good. So keep that in yellow. The blue. And we're not going to put the Payne's Gray on this yet because We don't need to. Okay, so I've loaded that up. It's not really that wet anymore, so I'm just going to spray down here. And this is the one that I didn't have a drawing, but it doesn't matter. Random, just like that. Good. It's kind of not really wet up there, so oh, you know what we could do? Let me show you how to do this. So I'm going to take this onto this brush, and I'm just going to randomly spread the color, leaving a lot of white space. I'm going to get it into some of this area here. Let's put a lot of yellow up there. You see how I'm leaving a lot of white space? And then I'm picking up some of the blue. This would actually just be perfect just like this. You know what I mean? But I definitely want to show you a trick to this. So depending on how much color you get onto your page. Oh, I just dipped it in the wrong one. Now, I could have just done that actually, blending with just the lighter color and then gone in with the darker color as a way to add the details. Set this aside. Okay, so here the spray has given us these really nice little lines, right? I'm going to encourage that. This spray bottle is okay. It's not the best one. Like my dog just ate one of my spray bottles. Yeah, feel my pain, right? And it was my favorite one because it caused a lot of bleeds. Like it used to kind of just, and I didn't really have to use this. But if you don't have a spray bottle that does this, just use like a fan brush to create some background, some texture. This is all going to bleed in, by the way, you know. And the farther back you hold your fan brush, the better it will be. Okay, look at that, beautiful. We got a puddle right here, so I'm just going to kind of wash that down so that I have a little bit, I don't have too much white in there. And I'm going to take this and, like I did over here, create kind of a streakiness, using the beautiful yellow. Like the yellow is just pouring off of our tree. Too cool, huh? I know. I love it. Okay, so now I'm just kind of going through here. I have a puddle down here, so I'm encouraging that puddle to just become like a little bit of blend, right? But I feel like it's just a little too much. So what do we do with the puddles? When it gets too much, you can just sop it right up and then go back in. But I really like how it kind of made it, you know, it made it just draw up. And that's really, really nice. If you want to encourage it to do that just a little bit more too, you can actually tilt this up, put a little more color in, you know, and add the spray to it. I really love this blue. It's beautiful. It's encouraging some of these little areas to go. So those are going to grow as we go. I did get some little areas just to stay, which is really, really nice, you know, because the spray bottle didn't go crazy with it. I wonder what happens if I just bring it back. This is a new one, so. No, this mister is just so, it's so even. But I do like the way it's bleeding. So you can see where we're starting to get the washes that we have on the sample. And that's really, really nice. It's beautiful. Hang on one sec. Okay, so here's what we have so far. So we have some areas here that we want to dry out just a little bit more. This has not finished doing its stuff yet, but I have to kind of rush it along a bit because otherwise we will be sitting here waiting for it to dry. But I do like what's happening here, and I think I'm going to take my brush and bring that yellow across there just a bit. I like that yellow up there. That's really nice. Little shots of yellow. It's beautiful. Okay. So I'm just kind of going through, filling in the space a little bit so that it blends into a nice backwash. I love the top of my tree. The top of my tree is, I mean, I can just leave that and be happy with it. Actually, I think I will. I'm just going to add a little more depth. I tend to add, I notice it right now where I see big pieces of yellow. I find that I take the highest contrast color that I'm using and I kind of drop it in right around where those shots of white are. And then you can literally, oh my gosh, all my brushes are sitting in the paint. My new palette hasn't cured yet. So, and I hand poured everything. So literally I make the mistake of setting things over on it and then it ends up with those colors. So let's rinse this out again. Grab a little bit. Let's keep it in here so that I don't mess up all my pretty paints. So I'm actually going around some of the white up here. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. Oops, hang on. I forgot we're using the Sennelier. That's okay. I can get it out. This is actually a good lesson for you. Those happy accidents. Take some clean water. Rub it. And it should come right out. If it doesn't come out, then your paints are cheap and too staining, and your watercolor paper is not performing well for you. But good watercolor paper, it should come out. It should lift. That's also the benefit of a lot of these really nice watercolors are not staining. And when they're not staining, it really helps because you can lift a lot easier. So some of these techniques you can certainly do so much easier. Okay, so I'm going here and I'm preserving a lot of my whites. I kind of feel like the paper is covering some of those little whites down here. So I'm going to be careful to keep them. But again, I want this part to be, for me, I'd like this part to be a little more green, right? So let's take some of our blue. The Ultra makes this luscious. It's like this teal color. It's so pretty. Okay. Let's go back to I love the randomness of this brush when it's dry. I think it's just amazing. So I put it in to the blue. Yeah, it's so much better. And it's just faster and easier. And it's just a lot more random. Because depending on which part you hit, it's going to carry either, the pieces of yellow or the pieces of blue. Now, as I'm mixing blue on top of this yellow, it being so wet, it's making this really pretty olive color. And the brush strokes are going to be reflective of the artist. So I'm pushing the paint. Some of you will be dragging. So just be mindful of what kind of brushstroke you're producing as an artist right now and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, change it. You know, if you're like, oh, this isn't working, well, then try something different. Don't do the same brush stroke. Try another tool. You know, get creative, stick your fingers on it. You know, maybe put your fingers in yellow and just start using your fingers to push the paint around. Anything goes in watercolor. It's a beautiful medium. You don't have a lot of the limitations that you have with other things. I mean, I encourage you to get messy. I'm giving you permission to get messy. Okay, so for the sake of time, do a little drawing here. This is the part with trees that just sometimes they just require a lot of fiddling. There we go. Yeah, I love it. So as this dries down here, right now I'm adding color so that we have this nice kind of range. Okay, so let's stop there. I love this area, this part where it was a lot more dry. That I could have done a lot more with down here. I would have liked to see that. If I wait for all this to dry, it will lighten up and I will get this kind of ability to get this range down here. So I almost want to stop the video, wait for this to dry, and then come back. But then that's really going to take all night. And it's probably something that I should do in our watercolor class come fall because I have a lot more time in the classes. I'm adding a little bit of yellow. And then I'm taking a little bit of my blue and just doing a little bit more darks, seeing what that does. Again, if I find that we don't like the way that looks, just pull it back out. Add a little water, pull it back out. And then you can get a little more detail. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. Let's clean water our brush. Like I'm already getting my new palette all dirty. Clean. I keep tons of water. Not just one, not just two, not just three. I have like 6 because these get dirty and I don't want to stop and have to go somewhere. So I'm taking my ultra, mixing it with my yellow, getting it on my brush, and hopefully it doesn't really feel dry enough. So let's just try and dry it. Cool. Not really dry enough, but I'll take it. It's really not a big deal. I mean, it's rough anyway. If I wait, it will take all night. Okay, I like that. So remember what we did? We put in some of the branches kind of randomly. Just strike them in because you're going to go back and you can cover them. I actually like that blended like that. I think it looks good. Now I'm taking some of the same color and we're just going to lightly tap it. I'm holding it at the very end because I want it to be as random and rough, and I don't want you to have too much control. I want you to release the control. Let go. Let go of the control. Let it be random. It's watercolor. When you get to some of the ends where it's nice and it's getting drier, then the lovely thing is you can add, just a little more detail. And if, it always looks better if I kind of go over the branches. If any of the branches haven't blended, don't take away your white, but just go ahead over them. And I love seeing the branch through there. So I'm actually going to encourage a couple of these. I love that. Now I wish I left even like more white space so that I could just kind of over exaggerate these branches. Cool. There we go. I love it. All right, so what are we going to do here to bring more detail? So I'm taking my rigger brush, and I feel like we kind of lost some of our lines. So let's go back to like the palette knife, get it wet. This is where we can bring in some of that Payne's gray. Mix it in with some water and reestablish our line. Take some of my blue. Good. Now I'm just going roughly with my rigger to kind of encourage some dry brushing effects across the paper. If you run out of paint, just reload. Take some of my blue. I love this little shot of blue down here. So I'm just going to kind of add some strikes of blue into my foreground because I feel like it just, you know, that's a signature thing for me, is adding really nice strikes of color. I can take my blue into my trunk now. Just give it all that much more energy. Now I'm going to start with the grass. What I'm doing is I have blue on my brush and I'm lifting out of the Payne's gray, adding more blue to my brush. And because it's really dark right now, it's giving us this really cool contrast. Now, in the areas where the paper is still not entirely dry, it will blend in, and then that will be part of more of the background. And then areas where it is dry, look at that. And where I left that yellow, now I can add a contrasting. So the habit is to get a really interesting look is add a contrasting color really close to a light color. This is neat. So this is actually going to keep going, right? It's going to keep doing stuff. It's really not going to stop doing stuff. I'm going to dip my rigger into this bright yellow. And now we're going to go in and just, this is kind of a signature for me, is I'm just going to add some clear shots of yellow in unexpected places. Just, this is something I eyeball and I love it. It just kind of gives me that, you know, that extra shot of color that I really love. If I feel like it didn't make it into the painting like it should have, and I can always go back and take areas, you know. Now I'm gonna take some of my yellow and let's create another line here so that it's just not all one color. Nice. And now we're going to get that white out just to show you how to do that white. Yum. Yay. Love it. Okay. Really happy with that. I am really happy with this. Let's go. Oh, what was this? This is a different yellow, right? Is this one? This is such a small little painting. I want to add little strikes of yellow, but I don't want to I don't want it to be too big. But literally my brush for this size painting, because this is like a 9 by 12 that is split. Just cool. I almost want to just like flick it on there. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just flicking it on there and take care of anything that doesn't look right. Trying to add in a little extra light, a little extra texture. This is the fiddling, you know. But I think it makes these little details sometimes need to happen, right? They make the painting better. And also it's dried, so where it's dried, I feel like some areas are just a bit like the Prussian that I used. I feel like it's just not as blue as I'd love it to be. So, I mean, that's just because it's sitting next to anything. So really, if I wanted to fiddle, I would probably grab some phthalo. Let's do it. Let's grab some phthalo. Where is phthalo on my palette? They all look the same. Or I could grab some cerulean, but most of you probably have phthalo. So helio cerulean would be really cool, but let's do a shade a little bit darker so it's not so bright. But helio turquoise 475 would be a good. Yep. This is going to be a nice little shot of color. So I'm just going to blend in a little bit of the phthalo turquoise. My brush is still a little bit big for this. Look at that. So I'm putting a little bit in the grass. Bring it a little bit. Just kind of dry brushing it up. Add a little water to encourage the color to come out. And then go in here. Now I literally am going to be here all night if I use this rigger to do this. So let's just put in some of our branches. Okay, good. That's the color I love. Yeah, I can't help it. All right, let's grab this. So I'm going to get this kind of sprayed out like that. Get it just wet enough. Let's see. There we go. So I'm adding another color because I can't help it. I don't love how light this Prussian dried. And this is actually a great lesson because if you're using a color that didn't dry right, then you can easily add another color. Now this is just typically my process because I like a lot of color and I like things to stand out and be a little more bright. So adding the helio turquoise is giving me, you know, the vision that I have for this tree. Please don't change your colors if you don't love bright colors. You know what I mean? Your colors can be pink. Your colors can be red. They can be any color that you like. Okay, so you can see how fiddling with this after it dried a little bit more really did allow us to bring in a nice color, right? I mean, I could even go in and with me, if I mean, I'm really loving the way this green looks, so I would, you know, I could easily just grab another color and just start as long as it's in the same range. So just mix it in. Oh, still a little soupy. But also you want to make sure that if you, oh, that's dark. If you put in the layers, and there's too many layers, then make sure you connect things. One big thing about watercolor is its ability to connect and its need to connect with the color next to it. If you start to lose that in your painting and you get too many details, then it will kind of make it look like it's not coming together. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I think we are done. Let's take a look and see what they're like. This was fun to do. Just kind of chill, relax. The second one, I don't know, which one do you guys like the best so far? They're very, very similar in color, actually, despite the fact that we used different colors. But, I mean, we use similar colors, but... Okay, so there's number one. It's really pretty. I love the shot of color there. And then you can see how bringing these pieces up where we were brushing them up while it was still wet, you get that nice smoky kind of background because it gets blended because it's wet. And then as it dries, you go and do the foreground with a little more detail and a very fine brush. And I didn't bring it over here. I let this be wet when I was doing it because I don't want it just like perfectly all the way across. Like this one kind of did a lot more shaping. I wanted to kind of draw the eye this way on this and just see how that worked out. And then my branches look good. Some of them are disappearing. I feel like it's a little raw over here. If I were going to fiddle, I would probably kind of cover some of the branches just partly. It's very similar to what I ended up with here when we went back in. I really just feel like taking this brush with a little bit of the green and just kind of adding, breaking up where those branches are, because that just is one of my things. I really don't love a branch going from here all the way up because that's just not how a tree looks. And I know that this is abstract, but especially in these looser paintings, you definitely don't want kind of like the amateur look of the branches just continuously going up like that like they just sit on the outside of the tree. That's a good way to describe it. Okay, I feel like I want to do another one that's even more like random, right? I mean, it's like semi-abstract. I feel like we got a little more detail than expected. This is incredible. I love the way that looked. Remember, this just kind of happened and we left it alone. And I felt like more I left alone, the better it was. I did go back and add shots of color here and here, but I added the blue too, just to enhance it. But I love what happened. I loved how I brought some of the yellow up, how it's got these streaks that's bleeding into the trees. That's really cool to me. But really, both of them, I like them both. They're both really pretty. You know, they both really speak to me. So that's a good thing. Can fiddle, backing off a little bit. I kind of see little areas where I can improve just a bit, just by adding a little bit of dark next to the light. Put the dark next to the light. It really just is a good way of giving you that added contrast in some areas. But always be careful not to do it evenly. Because if you do it everywhere the same, you know, as a rule, try to break everything up. So like if you do something on one side, don't do it on the other, you know, do it maybe slightly off. So if I'm over here, I'm going to go over here, not like here, 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 and all the way across, right? Like a fan. I don't want to do it perfectly, because if I do it perfectly every time and I copy the brush stroke, that's another style altogether. Again, if that's your style, that's okay, but that's just not what I'm about. I'm actually looking into my thing to see. There we go. Okay, I love it. I love the way they turned out. They look beautiful. So guys, if you like this tutorial, give it a thumbs up. If you want to come take the classes with me, go to jacquelinejax.com, because that is where we are going to be taking all kinds of classes. I have the Free Forever program. I have the really inexpensive program, and then I have some more advanced classes for beginners, and go through everything. Literally in the classes we go through everything from paper to paint to everything in between, everything that could possibly go wrong. So you will learn a lot. You'll get a lot of value from everything you learn from me. Okay guys, have a great one and happy painting. See you again soon.